Hello and welcome to the Surgical Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Al-Hakim, the Third Eye Doctor. Pull up a chair and get ready for some candid and uncompromising discussion with experts, innovators, agitators, and influential people from every corner of health and well-being. From inside the hospital to at home in the kitchen, we're leaving no stone unturned in our quest to uncover the secrets of healthier, happier, more successful, and less stressful lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, let's meet this episode's guest. Hello and welcome, Bhasha. Welcome back home.
Thank you very much.
So tell me, we last spoke about 6 or 7 months ago.
Yes.
And you've slotted in your role now as Miss England. Tell us more about it. How's it been?
Yes, it's been a whirlwind of just over 6 months now. But I have to say, my life has never been so up and down and all over the place in such a short amount of time. I think we can say for all of us, life has changed very quickly, very drastically in the last 1 month. So yeah, it's been an interesting reign so far.
So, what sort of ups and what sort of downs?
I think the immense pressure that we put on ourselves as doctors, as also somewhat as a public persona as well. Both of them, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, and feeling the guilt of doing one well and not the other, and trying to keep the balance. Those I'd say were the downs in terms of. I'll start with the downs so I can uplift you with the ups in a minute. But those were mainly the downs, in terms of dealing with the emotional outbursts that I was having, the anxiety that I was having, and it was also to do with feeling inadequate and feeling I'm not doing this job well enough, or because I took some time off work to compete in Miss World and do these other things. And every time when I was working, then I felt guilty that I'm not being dedicated enough to doing my role as Miss England and doing all the charity work that I should be doing. It was a bit like that, in terms of the ups, of course, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to take part in Miss World. I grew up watching that, and it's the oldest. It's 70 years of legacy. You see, it's a once in a lifetime. Even imagining to be on that stage, it still feels surreal that actually happened to me. We would joke about it when I was younger. It's never something one imagines would happen to you, and then to be called in a place like Miss World, not by your name but by England, refer to yourself as your country. I think that feels phenomenal. And one of the big aspects of Miss World is your project that you do, and mine was on type 2 diabetes. That made the top 20 in the projects, and I just remember tearing up seeing video of because I'd filmed the NHS and with my staff and everything, and it just made me tear up watching that on the big screen, you see. So it's things like that where you feel like you're truly representing your country. And then of course getting the opportunities to travel that I had planned for the rest of this year, but of course due to COVID, part of that got had to be halted. But I have so far traveled to Africa, to Turkey and India. And I don't know after COVID what of that will resume. So yes, those have been the ups and downs of what's happened so far.
And going back to the downs, you going through bouts of anxiety and sort of stress and emotional outbursts. How did you get yourself out of that?
I think for me, the kind of person I am, I love staying in denial, which is the worst thing you can do. I don't really register that something has hurt me or how deep an impact something has had on me. And I try to push it aside and get myself really busy. And then I'll find myself 2 weeks later responding to an event that happened 2 weeks ago and realizing that, things have really built up. I've really lost control of this small problem, which has now, become a big problem. So what I find has been helpful to me is acknowledging that, yes, this thing did not make me happy, and it's okay for me to be upset about it, and to actually emote it. I think somewhere I was really scared to admit it to myself that this affected me, or a particular event affected me, and I was scared to cry about it or anything like that, because I am supposed to be Miss England, and I'm supposed to sort of hold it all together. I'm the eldest in my family, and all the decisions that I've taken so far, they have been my decisions. And I think that sometimes becomes the hardest thing to deal with, that I have no one else to blame but myself. So you want it to be right in the end, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes the repercussions are not what you expected. And taking that blame onto yourself, acknowledging that, okay, this is where I went wrong, this is how it's made me feel, it's okay, and then forgiving yourself and going through that phase of acceptance and forgiveness of yourself. I'm not saying I had a massive bereavement or anything like that, but even the smaller issues, the small things that make you upset, they can pile up and cause a bigger problem. And I was having panic attacks at times because of that.
Yeah, and that's essentially the healing process, is once you actually stop and recognizing that it's a problem, that's when the healing starts. Rather than glossing over things or just covering things and just carrying on. And maybe this this current COVID crisis that's happening, it's forcing us to slow down and look at ourselves.
Absolutely. I actually was going to do 100 reasons why, COVID is good.
Yeah.
I know this is it's a very sadistic thing to do, but I also, recently I've had a lot of press and media interest come back onto me again because of me returning to work. So I thought, when the people are looking and they're all home and they're sort of always being fed, unfortunately, they're not being fed the wrong news, because it's the truth. It is true in terms of all the deaths that are happening worldwide. I think at a time like this, I want to be giving them some hope. So I wanted to sort of create content, whatever time that I have, with positives, because I think it's so important for us as a species to really start looking at life mindfully. That helped me so much. And I know being stuck at home, being away from your loved ones, can be so detrimental to your mental health. So mindfulness has really helped me, not doing it in a really technical way that we sometimes fear that if you go seek help, they'll give us this long, detailed process of doing it. And that's why I hated wanting to go to see a therapist. But I have seen therapy, and I've made my own version of it in terms of how I deal with it and how I act mindfully. So yes, I would like to do that and share my process with people, so that they can also look at the positive side of this time that we're going through.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I'm a realist, but I'm a positive realist. So I, at the end of the day, I mean, I lost 4 members of our family to the virus. So it's as real as it gets. But on the same token, we can always pick out the positives out of everything that happens to us. And I think your idea of having 100 points of positives from this COVID is actually an essential act of progressive evolution, as you said, as a species. And if individuals like yourself who have a positive outlook in life, if we can celebrate these individuals and encourage these individuals and, give them a bigger platform, I think this will evolve us as a species.
For sure. And I think if my journey and how I do it can inspire others to do a similar thing in their own lives every day, that, in terms of counting 100 things that went right today, that also changes things for a lot of people. So that's where I want to have an impact. And I don't think my life is going to be all that better. I don't want it to be, oh, look how good my life is, and let's compare that. I'd rather make it more about, well, actually, the things that have made me really, really happy recently is seeing how nature is healing itself. And before COVID happened as well, something that I found useful when dealing with mental health and negatives in your life was to sort of think about it. And I don't know about yourself, but I'm a huge believer in karma. And whenever something would go wrong in my life, even something as missing a train, I would think, what did I do? So did I hurt someone? Did I do something bad today that made me deserve this, And then when I would sort of look back and think, well, actually, I said something not very nice to this person on that date, that would sort of make me be okay with the reality. And then it would also make me sort of apologize or repent or do something nice to counter that. I think that was a really good process to sort of think about, okay, how did I contribute to this problem, even if it's not related, and deal with it like that. So the way I've been thinking about COVID is how humans as a whole, we have been leading such a lavish life at the cost of nature, the cost of animals and Mother Earth. And we've been, it's really put things into perspective as to, how, yes, we can survive on less, but how much we thought we needed, in terms of we need to go out, we need to do this, do that. So I think in a way, I'm sort of feeling actually, this was needed in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I did a post recently, and I said this incident just shows you how superfluous our lives have been, and sometimes we do need to reset the button. And when you reset the button, you have to reboot the whole system, which takes some time. Sometimes we have issues with the laptop, and you get frustrated, but that's just the way it is. You need to restart again. And sort of look at your priorities and exactly what you want, which is probably not much, and what you need is probably not very much either. And
exactly.
And it just shows you.
And we know at a time like this, unfortunately, the people who are going to suffer the most are going to be the ones that have the least in the first place. We need to acknowledge that we are not at the worst place ourselves. That we need to really acknowledge that, and it's time that we got that time to really think about these things, and this is an opportunity for us to share. And I'm encouraging people that I know as well to donate to the needy, to read the people that actually don't have the option to stay at a home because they don't have a home, or they don't have the option to sort of work from home because they don't have the means to have an everyday like food on the table because they don't have money for that. So and I think that itself is also really going to help us through this process. The more we share, the more we help, it's really going to impact our mental health as a society so much, because an act of kindness, as you must know as a doctor yourself, is known to activate your dopamine receptors in your brain, and it's known scientifically to make you happier. So I'd recommend that as well.
And what we're seeing now is financially advantaged people, i.e. rich, are actually going out there and helping the wider community and the community that have none. Whereas before this, it probably wasn't as much. So that's a massive positive. I mean, I love the fact that you're already thinking about 100 positives, in this current climate, and that's very big-hearted of you.
Thank you.
And so let's go back sort of before this happened, and you were traveling a lot. What did you learn from that? All that traveling.
I really love meeting new people, and honestly, I always found that to travel to these particular countries that I went to, it humbled me. It humbled me that when I went to a orphanage in Africa, these little kids, they didn't really know who I was. I mean, they know, oh, Miss England, but they're just kids. They don't really understand the commercial side of things or anything like that, or how much, a popularity or Instagram and all these things. They don't understand all this. But for them, it was, oh, we've got a guest who's come from England, who's not from here, who's come from somewhere else. They're come and taken an interest in our home, each of the little kids, they were so they were so poor, this small orphanage in Africa. It was very, very simple. There were 4 kids in each room, but maybe they had one toy between like 4 of them or something like that, and they literally took me to all their rooms to show their rooms, and none of them wanted to miss the opportunity to show me their rooms or their little toy or their artwork or something like that. And it humbled me that who am I? But look, with just me walking in, I'm making them smile. And it really, really humbled me, that whole experience that I also had in India, as to see that these people with so little have such big smiles on their faces with so little, and it takes so little to make them happy. That was something that was really impactful for me.
And the fact that this language is universal.
Absolutely. It was humbling for me. I didn't, they just, for instance, I went to India, and I was at that time teaching, because COVID was still going on then, but it wasn't such a big deal. It just sort of crept into India at that point. Wherever I was going, I was teaching the kids, the right way to cough and sneeze, and not to do a handshake, things like that. And bless this tiny orphanage we went to, the kids picked up as soon as I taught them this small thing of coughing in your armpit. They were doing it straight away. I just saw how quick the impact is, and how malleable little children are. It really showed me, and especially the ones that are deprived. They are so quick to respond to any stimulus because they have so little. They are literally yearning for any little stimulus, any teaching, any attention, love. These children have been discarded from their families because of either disability or they have no family. And it just, it made me so hopeful for humanity that really, there is possibility to make a change. There are young minds that we can still impact, and if we do it right, we can change society potentially. That's what I mean.
So it raised your spirits, it raised your hopes, and it gave you faith in humanity.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And it took you some time to come back to the UK. What happened?
Yeah. Yes. So we were so busy traveling across India. We hadn't really kept up with the news. We were sort of watching things from social media, and in social media there was so much of fake news and rumors, and we didn't really understand the scale of things and how quickly things were going to escalate, especially in India. And amidst our travels, I was meant to travel to Pakistan after India, and my visa was just not coming through. And I was worried that, if I was to take my flight to Pakistan, what if I would get stranded? Meanwhile, I was hearing from the doctors here about how grim the situation is, how retired doctors have returned to work. I thought, okay, well, I think it's time I should probably cancel the rest of the Asia trip, because, my visas are not coming through, and there might be problems in terms of traveling, and there's rumors about flights being grounded. I don't want to take the risk. Let me go back to the UK and just go back to work. I started that process. And amidst all me doing all this and preponing my departure, the Prime Minister of India had announced that they were going to go into lockdown from the 22nd of March. My flight was booked for the 21st. We went to the airport to check on the 20th if flights were still running, because there were so many flights being cancelled. About 750 people had been sent home from the airport, and all these things are happening. And bless my mum as well, she tried last minute to book a flight. We all had one day to fly home, 21st of March, and our flights got cancelled. Even though we were on the flight, got made to come off the flight after being on the runway for 4 hours.
So you're on the plane, you're waiting to take off, and then they decided not to let you leave.
Yes, so they actually came and checked that we had our seatbelts on, showed us all the exit doors and everything, all the demonstrations had been done. 4 hours later, the flight's not flying, so we had to get off again.
Why? Why? What happened?
Well, they said it was a technical issue.
Right.
But honestly, I don't know what to believe, because there was so many flight cancellations on the same day. And there was stupid things like countries are refusing the flights to fly over them.
Wow.
Yes.
How does that make sense?
Stupid. I know. It didn't make sense. And it didn't make sense why exit flights from the country would be banned. It did not make sense at all.
Were they testing you for temperature or for symptoms?
Nothing like that. No. And temperature hardly tells you enough. Like, it's yeah.
You can always take a few paracetamol anyway, just beforehand.
Exactly. But the point is that there were thousands of people stranded together in a cluster in the airport. Yeah. And that's a very risky situation. And they should have really thought about that rather than temperatures. There were people crying, distressed, thousands of suitcases lying around. People, the phone lines were so busy because everyone was trying to get a flight to get out of the country. So my flight got cancelled. I stayed at the airport trying to book another flight. Couldn't do this. I had an existing flight to another part of the country, to Calcutta, on the same day, because I was supposed to be going to visit my family anyway, but I had preponed my departure. So I took that flight and I went to self-isolate with my family, because the local government law is that if you've come from a different state and there are elderly people in the home, you have to self-isolate in one room. So me and my mom, we got separated. My mom stayed behind in Delhi and I went to Calcutta. So she ended up being stranded in Delhi. She stayed with some friends and I stayed with family. Thankfully for me, I only had to self-isolate and stay in quarantine for 8 days before I was rescued.
Rescued?
You could say that, yes. It felt like that. It felt like refugee rescue, to be honest. It's very hush-hush and you can't tell anybody. I was having lots of media interviews to either plead the government to help, and this sort of flagged up with the British Embassy there. They arranged for a flight, which the German embassy had arranged for the German nationals there. And, there was like police permits and all these to be arranged just to get from the home to the airport. Gosh, it was an ordeal. But for me, much better than others. If you obviously looked like you were a foreigner, given that you were Caucasian or something, you had a much worse scenario. There were people I was flying with who had the mob come at them with sticks and like metal rods, and the police charge at them with sticks as well. So they had it much worse, and they were kicked out of their hotels. There was a lot of prejudice going on. If they saw and knew that you'd come from abroad, then they were calling you coronavirus and spitting and being all yeah.
Oh my God.
It was pretty scary. But for me, I got lucky, and it took me 30 hours, but I did get home eventually. I got home on 1st of April.
And your mum's still there at the moment?
My mum finally got home yesterday. So
Wow.
She finally got home, yeah.
And she's safe? She's okay?
She is safe, yeah. She's okay, yeah. She's sleeping in a separate room to us for her own reasons. She wants to self-isolate, but it's really difficult when you're sort of sharing premises, and it's difficult to really maintain the rules, because you're touching surfaces and everything. So, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know it was that sort of chaotic over there in India.
It is, yeah. There's a lot of bureaucracy, unfortunately. Even for my mum, they sealed her building on the day of the flight departure for her. And we had to call some magistrate somewhere else, a police commissioner somewhere else. And there were so many phone calls happening. It's pretty scary, actually. Especially if you're not someone who's well off and got connections to get you through these situations. It can be quite difficult.
Wow. And are there still, British nationals stuck in India at the moment?
There are. There are a few more rescue flights that are being conducted over this week and next week. But they're going completely packed out, which also I think it's dangerous, because our flight, the German flight, they had only a select number that were allowed, so that we could actually keep one seat between each of us to maintain that distance. But the British flights haven't had that.
Yeah, I mean, sort of on the positive side, I mean, if you maintain a good immunity and you stay physically healthy, you're more likely to stay mentally healthy, and you're more likely to fight off the virus. So, I think if you concentrate on your own health, that will only improve things globally. For
sure, absolutely.
So now that you're safe and sound here back in the UK, and it's not the same UK as you left it, so to speak. What kind of changes have you noticed here?
Honestly, I would say that I personally didn't notice a massive difference, besides at the train station in London, where it was pretty empty. But I have seen it that empty at night time or really early hours of the morning anyway. I'd say Britain, in a nice context, has got the attitude of keep calm and carry on.
Great.
And I love that about the British. Honestly, the fact that wherever you go, they're still treating us like human. As you said, yes, I would agree that even at the shopping, if you go to get your groceries, yes, people are sort of keeping a distance from everybody. We had a situation like that last week where we mutually got away from each other. Yeah. But I felt really guilty. And then it was almost a mutual understanding that, no offense, but we have to do this.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, I do feel that the keep calm and carry on attitude is still very much alive here. And I'm an introvert, so I don't really miss going out that much. I can stay at home for long periods of time without missing being outdoors anyway. I've been getting on with house chores and stuff. I suppose what really will be making the difference is when I go to work. That's probably where I'm going to notice any difference. But let's see. I do applaud Britain for having the keep calm and carry on attitude and whatever they're doing. I don't personally notice a massive difference.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an extrovert, and I feed off everyone else and off the environment. And That's why I've gone a bit kind of low,
Oh.
because everyone else is, not interacting with me, so to speak. So yeah, I've really felt that downturn, and so I'm getting used to my introversion right now, being by myself, and just with my thoughts and so on. But hey, it's a time for change, and that's just the way it goes. And given that you're going to go back into the NHS, I mean, when I first went back, this was about 10 days ago, I was in 2 weeks self-isolation as well. I was very apprehensive, actually. I thought, shit, into the war zone, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the moment I sort of walked in, my mates were there, my colleagues were there.
Yeah.
And okay, we had to wear a few extra things and extra layers, but it was kind of business as usual. We had a good laugh. We had some good banter, and yeah, the patients were patients. It was
Exactly.
kind of
I
business as
think
usual, really.
that's the thing that I know I'm banking on, in a way, that the NHS is it's about being part of a team, and everyone helps each other out, and um, that is that's what's going to get me through this. I think
Yeah,
that sort of being able to rely on your colleagues and have that support, and the fact that you're all going through a shared experience in a way. So hopefully with that team effort, we can avoid something disastrous from happening.
and
Um,
also, I mean, also, even the people I didn't like at work, I was actually liking them as well. The people that I always have arguments with, I wasn't having, we were just working together. It was quite
yeah,
weird. It was quite surreal. And, you know,
yeah.
normally I come in huff and puff, complain about the business of the clinic and sort of what have you. But the day I came in, I was like, yeah, excellent, bring them on. I was so buzzing.
Yeah, yeah. You get the adrenaline rush, I bet. So,
Yeah.
what I wanted to ask you was, how was it wearing the PPE? Because I start work next week. I want to know how it's been
Well, I
before
mean,
that.
we don't have like the proper full shebang, intensive care PPE with all the double,
Hazmat, yeah.
yeah, all that kind of stuff. It was literally just a mask and a surgical mask and some gloves. And I was happy with that. Plus, being an ophthalmologist, we have a visor on our slit lamp.
Oh, good, yeah.
So, we had that there. And to be honest, I wasn't too bothered about it. I mean, I wasn't
So,
bothered about it at all.
so was there any limitations to how close you could get? Because as an ophthalmologist, if you're using an ophthalmoscope, then you have to get really close to the patient's face, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not too bothered, to be honest. I'm not too bothered. I mean, if the patient had a bit of an issue with them, then obviously we had to kind of compromise to a certain extent.
Mm, mm.
But I guess because I wasn't, too bothered about it, nor was the patient. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think you've just got to make your clinical
I think
judgment.
that's what I really like about this country, that people are treating it more practically.
Yeah,
I felt that people, when I was in India, at least, there was a huge amount of public anxiety, unnecessary, where to the point of people becoming impractical and obstructive, really.
yeah,
Um, I found it really annoying, in fact, that even on the airline that I came with, would you believe it? The airline staff were wearing hazmat suits.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, where the hospital staff do not have enough full PPE.
yeah.
They were wearing the full PPE with the glasses, the mask, and everything. I was and when someone tried to touch them on the shoulder to ask for something, he literally was like, "Madam, please don't touch me." I
Yeah,
was
I'm
like,
about to die. You've got the lurgies. Stay away.
yeah, it's mental, it's mad. So I do like the fact that in the UK people are dealing with a lot more calm and practical manner.
I had one patient, you could see who was in a lot of anxiety, and he wasn't wearing the whole visor and PPE and everything, but he was wearing, one of these silly masks. And I tried to break the ice with some banter and some jokes, and he wasn't having any of it. So, I kept my 2-meter distance, washed my hands, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So it really depends on, and the good thing about here is that we do have that leeway to use a bit of common sense and use a bit of, calmness and, think about it. I was in the supermarket yesterday, and, we weren't keeping 2 meters apart from each other, we're sort of going all over the place. But there was one woman, you can see she was literally trying to make sure everyone's 2 meters away from her. So she kept stopping every 10 seconds because people would be, whizzing past buying their baked beans and chocolates. So, I don't know. I guess if you take it by the letter of the law, I think it won't be pleasant at all. So it really depends on, the managers, the people in administration, and also the medical leadership, how far they want to take this, and how strict. But I think there needs to be local variation and local leeway with this. Otherwise, it becomes totally impractical, and then we can't do, the routine stuff which everyone needs anyway.
Absolutely.
So, it's going to be interesting, and welcome back. Thank you, to the powers be that got you back here, because, we do need your beautiful face, beautiful body, beautiful mind, and beautiful smile here, because you do raise our spirits.
Thank you.
And what are your 3 top tips to our listeners today to sort of get them through the next 6 months?
So, of course, pay attention to the mental health, and the 3 ways that I would tell them is gratitude, donating to charity, which is the act of kindness. Whether you donate to a charity or act as a volunteer, or donate actual purchased goods in terms of, sanitation products or food, drop it off to the homeless or something like that when you go and shopping. Gratitude being obviously saying thank you, even to the shopkeepers, and like going out of your way to say thank you. Reach out to someone who's a nurse that you know, or anybody else that you know is a key worker. Reach out to them and drop them a message, say thank you, or check on them if they need anything. So the gratitude, act of kindness, and the mindfulness, which I mentioned, which is, trying to focus on the small positives, noticing the small positives, especially nature. The weather has been absolutely fantastic in the last week, and we have to be happy about that. I've seen birds and squirrels, and just notice these things and focus on things like that. So those are my 3 tips, really: gratitude, mindfulness, and act of kindness.
You've been awesome, Bhasha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this installment of the Surgical Spirit podcast. For all the latest in the world of surgical spirit, don't forget to follow on Twitter at The Third Eye Doc, and catch me on Facebook at the page The Third Eye Doctor. You can visit the website at www.thethirdeyedoctor.co.uk for more information on the work that I do. And please send us feedback and questions and suggestions for the podcast. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. I've been Dr. Haida Al-Hakim, and I'll see you next time.